The Battle of Waterloo, the defeat that ended Napoleon's empire. On June 18, 1815, a rain-soaked field in Belgium became the final stage for one of history's greatest conquerors. The Battle of Waterloo pitted Napoleon Bonaparte, freshly returned from exile, against a coalition of Allied forces led by the Duke of Wellington and Prussian Field Marshal Gebhard von Blücher. In a single day, this clash shattered Napoleon's dreams of a resurgent empire. How did a coalition of nations defeat the military genius who once ruled Europe? This is the saga of strategy, resilience, and a defeat that reshaped the 19th century. The road to Waterloo began with Napoleon's dramatic return. Exiled to Elba in 1814 after his disastrous Russian campaign and defeat by the Sixth Coalition, Napoleon seemed finished. Yet, on March 1, 1815, he landed in France, sparking the 100 Days. Rallying loyalists, he overthrew King Louis XVI and rebuilt his army. Europe's powers, Britain, Prussia, Austria, and Russia, formed the Seventh Coalition, vowing to crush him before he could destabilize the continent. Napoleon, with 73,000 troops, struck first, marching into Belgium to split the Allied armies. The Duke of Wellington commanded a 68,000-strong Anglo-Dutch army, a mix of British veterans, Dutch recruits, and German allies. Blücher led 117,000 Prussians, battle-hardened but scattered. Napoleon aimed to defeat each army separately, preventing their combined strength, 185,000 men, from overwhelming him. On June 16th, he engaged the Prussians at Ligny, wounding Blücher and forcing a retreat while holding Wellington at Quatre Bras. By June 17th, Napoleon believed he had the upper hand. He detached Marshal Emmanuel de Grouchy with 33,000 men to pursue Blücher, expecting the Prussians to flee east. Meanwhile, Wellington withdrew to a defensive position south of Waterloo, a ridge called Mont Saint-Jean. Napoleon, with 73,000 men, planned to crush Wellington before Blücher could return. Heavy rains that night turned the battlefield into a quagmire, delaying the French attack and giving the Allies time. The Waterloo battlefield was compact, 2 miles wide, with rolling fields flanked by strongpoints. Wellington anchored his line on 3 fortified farms, Hougoumont to the west, La Haye Sainte in the center, and Papelotte to the east. His 68,000 troops, British, Dutch, Belgians, and Germans, held the ridge, with 17,000 men hidden on the reverse slope to shield them from artillery. Napoleon's 73,000, including 15,000 cavalry and 246 guns, massed opposite, confident in a frontal assault. At 11 a.m. on June 18th, the battle began with a French diversionary attack on Hougoumont. Napoleon's brother, Prince Jérôme, led 6,000 men against the farm, defended by 1,500 British and German troops. The fight for Hougoumont became a bloody sideshow, draining French resources, but failing to break Wellington's line. By noon, Napoleon launched his main assault, sending Marshal Jean-Baptiste Drouet's corps, 18,000 men, toward the Allied center. The French advance, slowed by mud, faced murderous Allied fire. Wellington's troops, including British redcoats and Dutch infantry, held La Haye Sainte, repelling Drouet's men. French artillery, 80 guns pounding the ridge, inflicted heavy casualties, but Wellington's reverse slope tactic minimized losses. By 2 p.m., the attack stalled, with 5,000 French casualties. Napoleon, frustrated, prepared a massive cavalry charge, unaware of a growing threat, Blücher's Prussians. Blücher, far from retreating, had rallied his army. Marching 15 miles through muddy tracks, 50,000 Prussians approached Waterloo from the east. Grouchy, misled by poor intelligence, chased phantoms instead of engaging Blücher. By 1 p.m., Prussian scouts reached Plancenoit, threatening Napoleon's right flank. Napoleon detached 10,000 men, including young guard units, to hold the village, thinning his main force. At 4 p.m., Marshal Michel Ney, Napoleon's cavalry commander, launched a series of charges. Over 9,000 horsemen, cuirassiers, lancers, and dragoons thundered toward Wellington's center. The Allies formed squares, bristling with bayonets repelling wave after wave. Ney's attacks, unsupported by infantry, cost 2,000 cavalrymen and gained no ground. Wellington later said, "Never did I see such gallantry wasted." The battle's climax came at 6 p.m. La Haye Sainte fell to French infantry, giving Napoleon a foothold in the Allied center. He committed his Imperial Guard, 6,000 elite veterans, to break Wellington's line. The Guard, unbeaten in a decade, marched under heavy fire. Wellington's British foot guards, hidden on the ridge, rose and fired volleys at 40 yards, shattering the Guard's ranks. The cry, "La Garde recule," the Guard retreats, spread panic among the French. As the Guard faltered, Blücher's Prussians stormed Plancenoit, forcing Napoleon to divert reserves. By 8 p.m., Wellington ordered a general advance. The French army, exhausted and outmaneuvered, collapsed. Napoleon fled to Paris, pursued by Allied cavalry. Waterloo's toll was horrific. 25,000 French dead or wounded, 15,000 Allied, and 7,000 Prussian casualties. Over 10,000 horses littered the field. Waterloo ended Napoleon's empire. On June 22nd, he abdicated, exiled to St. Helena, where he died in 1821. The Seventh Coalition occupied France, restoring Louis XIII. The Congress of Vienna redrew Europe, establishing a balance of power that lasted decades. Britain emerged as a global hegemon, while Prussia gained influence, setting the stage for German unification. Why was Waterloo decisive? Wellington's defensive tactics, using the ridge and strongpoints, blunted Napoleon's attacks. Blücher's timely arrival turned a stalemate into a rout. Napoleon's errors, dividing his army, underestimating Blücher, and over-relying on the Guard, sealed his fate. The coalition's unity, forged by years of war, proved stronger than one man's genius. The human cost was grim. Soldiers like Private Thomas Jeremiah, a British rifleman, fought through smoke and mud, their stories preserved in letters. French veterans like Captain Pierre Dubois of the Guard saw their empire crumble in hours. Civilians near Waterloo, their farms looted, buried the dead for weeks. The battle's chaos, with 160,000 men clashing in a square mile, left a scarred landscape. Waterloo's legacy endures. It marked the end of the Napoleonic Wars, ushering in a century of relative European peace. Wellington became a national hero, his tactics studied in military academies. The battle's drama, immortalized in art and literature, symbolizes the fall of ambition. Waterloo wasn't just a defeat. It was the day a coalition humbled a titan, reshaping Europe's destiny. The Battle of Waterloo, fought on June 18, 1815, was a cataclysm that ended Napoleon Bonaparte's reign and reshaped Europe's future. In a single day, the Allied forces under the Duke of Wellington and Prussian Field Marshal Gebhard von Blücher shattered Napoleon's final bid for power. The courage of soldiers, the weight of strategic decisions, and the battle's lasting impact reveal a moment where resilience triumphed over ambition. Let's delve into the aftermath, the human stories, and the lessons that cemented Waterloo as a turning point in history. The human toll of Waterloo was staggering. The French suffered 25,000 dead or wounded, with 8,000 captured, their army broken beyond repair. The Allies lost 15,000, and the Prussians 7,000, a combined toll of 22,000 in a battle fought across a mere 2 square miles. Over 10,000 horses perished, their carcasses littering the muddy fields. Survivors like British rifleman John Harris described a hellscape. Men and beasts lay tangled, the ground red with blood. The soldiers of Waterloo were a diverse tapestry. British redcoats like Private Thomas Jeremiah of the 23rd Foot fought with disciplined volleys, their training honed by years of war. Dutch and Belgian troops, often maligned as untested, held key positions under fire. Prussian infantry, marching 15 miles to join the fight, arrived exhausted but resolute. French veterans, including the elite Imperial Guard, carried the weight of a decade's glory, only to see it crumble in hours. Civilians near Waterloo endured the battle's chaos. Farmers in Mont-Saint-Jean and Plancenoit saw their homes looted and fields trampled. Women like Marie Leclerc, a local innkeeper, nursed wounded soldiers, regardless of uniform, in barns turned hospitals. After the battle, villagers buried thousands, a grim task that lasted weeks. Their silent suffering, rarely recorded, was a backdrop to the clash of empires. Wellington's leadership was a masterclass in defense. His choice of Mont-Saint-Jean's ridge, with its reverse slope, shielded troops from French artillery. Fortifying Hougoumont and La Haye Sainte anchored his line, forcing Napoleon to bleed resources. Wellington's calm under pressure, rallying Dutch troops and repositioning reserves, held the Allies together. His trust in Blücher's arrival, communicated via messengers, ensured the coalition's unity. Blücher's contribution was equally vital. At 72, the Prussian commander defied age and injury to rally his army after Ligny's defeat. His decision to march west, parallel to Wellington, rather than retreat east, turned the battle's tide. Prussian troops, like those of General Hans von Zieten's corps, fought through mud to seize Plancenoit, splitting Napoleon's attention. Blücher's relentless pursuit after the battle ensured the French could not regroup. Napoleon's errors were fatal, dividing his army, sending Grouchy to chase Blücher's retreat, left him outnumbered when the Prussians arrived. His delay until 11 a.m., waiting for the ground to dry, gave Blücher time to close in. Over-reliance on the Imperial Guard, committed too late, squandered his best asset. Napoleon's underestimation of the coalition's resolve, forged by years of fighting him, blinded him to the trap closing around his army. The battle's aftermath was swift and seismic. Napoleon fled to Paris, abdicating on June 22nd. Exiled to St. Helena, a remote Atlantic island, he died in 1821, his empire a memory. The Allies occupied France, restoring King Louis XVIII. The Congress of Vienna, finalized in 1815, redrew Europe's map, balancing power among Britain, Prussia, Austria, and Russia. This concert of Europe maintained relative peace until the Crimean War in 1853. Waterloo's strategic impact was profound. Britain emerged as a global superpower, its naval and economic dominance unchallenged. Prussia's role elevated its status, laying the groundwork for German unification under Bismarck. France, humbled, turned inward, its revolutionary fervor curbed. The battle ended the Napoleonic Wars, a 15-year conflict that killed 5 million, reshaping alliances and borders. The battle reshaped military thought. Wellington's defensive tactics, using terrain and fortified strongpoints, influenced commanders like Robert E. Lee in the American Civil War. The coalition's success showed the power of unified strategy, a model for alliances like NATO. Napoleon's failure highlighted the risks of dividing forces and ignoring logistics, lessons studied in military academies to this day. Waterloo's cultural legacy is vast. Victor Hugo's Les Miserables dramatized the battle, while paintings by William Sadler captured its chaos. The term Waterloo became synonymous with final defeat, used in politics and sport. Wellington, lionized as Britain's greatest general, served as prime minister, his stoic image a national icon. The battle's drama, with 160,000 men clashing in a day, remains a touchstone for historians and storytellers. The human stories endure. Soldiers like French cuirassier Jean-Marc Dubois, wounded in Ney's cavalry charge, wrote of comrades falling in a sea of mud and fire. Prussian drummer Karl Bauer, a teenager, recalled the exhaustion of marching to Blücher's aid. Civilians like farmer Peter van der Linden rebuilt lives amid the wreckage. These voices, preserved in diaries and letters, give Waterloo its beating heart. The Battle of Waterloo was more than a clash of armies. It was the day a coalition, through grit and unity, ended a Titan's reign. In Belgium's fields, Wellington and Blücher forged a victory that reshaped nations. Waterloo wasn't just a defeat. It was the moment Europe turned from Napoleonic ambition to a new era, its lessons echoing through time.